بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, in today's talk regarding the life of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, we will talk about, we talked last week regarding Umar's attitude towards the good deeds that people did in the past or during the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. He made sure that the good deeds or the righteous deeds have been brought in front of the people, so it motivates the others to do the same good deeds or even better. So that was the way Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh was dealing with the good deeds. Then today, inshallah, we will talk about the life of Umar with respect to one of the aspects that probably we all have heard or think about whenever the name of Umar comes, which is the haibah of Umar. Now, we'll talk about that when we talk about the haibah of Umar. And then, inshallah, in the society, how it was. His keenness to meet people, we'll talk about, and also how he disciplined some of the leaders while Umar was the Khalifa in his time. And also, as we talked about last week regarding the righteous deeds or the good deeds that he acknowledged of the past and during his time, likewise, he also made sure if there is any bad action was going on in the society, he denounced them as well. Because look, always remember, it's not the issue of only Amr bil Ma'ruf or only Nahy al-Munkar. They both go hand in hand. And this is what we see in the life of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. Now, before I go into talk about Umar's haibah in the society, or we want to talk about his the respect the people have towards him, but this respect was more, think of as you know, you have an awe about a person. This is a person who you have not necessarily the fear in the sense, but at the same time, you also make sure that you watch out what you're doing around Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. So he had a prestigious kind of a personality and aura and awe that he had. So when we talk about that, it's also have to remember that there is no authority if there is no obedience of the people. There's no authority. I mean, if there's no obedience, what kind of authority are we talking about? So authority goes along with the obedience. But that obedience also have to be remembered from the perspective of, from the hadith of Rasulullah and the ayat from the Quran that talks about that. As Rasulullah said in one of the hadith, which is reported by both Bukhari and Muslim, muttafaqun alayh hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, La ta'ata fi ma'asiyati innama ta'atu fil ma'ruf. Meaning that the obedience, there is no obedience in the ma'asiyah. Ma'asiyah means in the sin. And the obedience is only for ma'ruf, about the good things. So even if you have an Amirul Mu'mineen over you, only thing that you obey is as long as he is asking you to do things which are from the ma'ruf, from Islam, not outside Islam. Similarly, the hadith says from reported by Imam Ahmad, لا تعاد لمخلوق في معصية الله عز وجل. There is no obedience to the makhluk of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So obedience goes along within the framework of Islam. We cannot talk about that there's obedience going on like a blind obedience, somebody asks you to commit haram, you still do it. No. Even to the point, the highest level of authority that Islam defines, which is the Khalifa on top of you or Amirul Mu'mineen, this is the highest authority we talk about on the dunya. And even for that, it is not allowed for us to obey if it is in the sin. So keeping this in mind, now when we talk about Umar's respect in the society, there are some incidents, inshallah, I'll talk about that will make us understand what does it mean by that. For example, in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu, one of the first things, if you want to look at in the history, he did when he came after Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu an passed away, was he removed Khalid bin Walid radiallahu an from the leadership he had within the army. And Umar had a different understanding about that. It's not that some of the Orientalists, Mustashriqeen, and the people who keep some grudge against Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, they try to discuss as if Umar had some issues with Khalid bin Walid. From the childhood, they have some issues with each other, and Umar was trying to take the revenge here. That was not the case. As a matter of fact, this happened when? On the day of the Yarmouk. And Yarmouk was against the Byzantine, which is the Romans. And Muslims were up against a superpower of that time. And Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah radiallahu anh was given the charge of the army by Umar bin Khattab, and that was taken away from Khalid bin Walid. And right away, Khalid's response was, we hear and obey the Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh. His response right away was that. And one of the person actually said to him, there may be a fitna. It will create some chaos within the army, that the leadership has been changed. Because one of the things, remember, Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh was a Sahabi to whom Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam called him as Sayfullah. Sayfullah, the sword of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Which means they knew that Rasulullah told him as the Sayfullah, gave him the title of Sayfullah, this sword cannot be broken. Meaning Khalid bin Walid will not be he will not be killed by the kuffar. And this is why Khalid bin Walid, he actually passed away with this hope of getting the Shahada, but he did not get the Shahada. But anyways, that's not the topic here. The subject here is Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh, when he was told to him there will be a fitna, and Khalid bin Walid's response to him was, there is no room for fitna so long as Umar is in charge. Why? Because Umar was very well respected by the people. They knew. Yes, you find some time here and there, and some of the examples we will talk about, that you feel like as if people were scared of him. It was not the sphere of Umar per se that Umar will do something haram to them. No. It's the haibah, meaning they were worried about what? They were worried about, okay, he is very firm in implementing the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is not going to be swayed away, or just because he is close to him, or he has some leadership position, or he's a family member or something. No, that's what Umar was. Another example we see is that Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, he found out about a woman. The men were talking about her. So he sent a message to her that come to Umar. Umar wanted to discuss with her what's going on. And she was in labor. She was already in labor. But Umar said, so she goes, okay, what does Umar want from me? Right away she went. And she already started having the labor pains on. While she was on the way, women saw what was going on with this woman. So they helped her out, and she gave birth to a child. The child was alive. At the birth time, it was alive, but it passed away right away. So it cried, but it passed away, meaning it came out alive. It was not a stillborn baby or anything. Now, so Umar bin Khattab wanted to find out what to do now. He thought of it as if Umar did something, called her up, so that out of fear, she went into labor, she gave birth, and the baby died. Now, he asked Ansar and Muhajirin, as usual. Umar used to ask, get some advice or consultancy from the major Sahaba from the Ansar and Muhajirin. And he asked them, what do you think about this, what has just happened? So they say, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, what you did was something right. You wanted to talk to the women if there's something wrong going on to fix. There's nothing wrong that you have done. From your end, you did not do anything wrong. Now, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh said, what about you in the back? The story starts like, oh, Fulan bin Fulan. It does not say the name in the beginning. So it says, what do you think about this incident? And subhanAllah, look at the response of the person. And the person was Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anh, just to be fair. And his judgment, he was famous for his judgment, by the way. That he had, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him understanding of the deen, a very deep understanding of the deen. So he said, what do you think? So he said, I say if the people said what they said to please you, then by Allah, they have not been sincere to you. Because the people around them, they're just trying to calm him down. That's not a mistake. So he said, if that's the reason, they're not sincere to you. And then said, but if they were honest opinion, then by Allah, they are wrong. So either way, they have done something wrong. They gave the wrong opinion, or they were insincere to Umar bin Khattab. He said, I urge you to go ahead and give the diya. Diya is something when a person kills a person unintentionally. It was not intended. A person was not intended. For example, somebody's driving, and while driving, somebody gets killed because of him. Or you go on a hunting, and while you're hunting for a deer, and by mistake you shoot a person, and person dies. Your intent was not that. So it was not amadan, it was not intended. Then in that case, you give the diya. Diya is the blood money that you give to the family members or the qawm or the people of the person specifically who has who's been harmed. So this was Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu an, and of course Umar bin Khattab radiallahu an went along with what Ali said. Similarly, when you talk about this all of Umar bin Khattab, the haiba of Umar bin Khattab, that Ali, Uthman, look at the Sahaba's name, Ali, Uthman, Talha, Zubair bin Awwam, and Abdurrahman, and Sa'd radiallahu an. They gathered and they wanted Abdurrahman bin Auf to go and talk to Umar Khattab. They did not have the courage to talk to Umar. So they chose the one because Abdurrahman bin Auf was famous, that he would go and talk to Umar without any problem or anything. So they said, why don't you go and talk to Amir Mu'mineen about the people? Because sometimes one who is in need comes, but his fear of Umar, and they prevent him from speaking. And he goes back without having his needs sent. So it's again, when I'm saying the word fear, it's not a correct translation. It's more of you're so impressed by somebody, and at the same time, fear of course, you may make a mistake, and then Umar's durra will be out. And the durra of Umar was famous. That he'll take out his stick and will beat up the people, anybody's making a mistake. So now here, Abdurrahman bin Auf, he said, okay, he will go and talk. And he said, Abdurrahman said that he mentioned to Umar al-Khattab what the situation was, why people, then Umar right away sensed it, that this is not Abdurrahman bin Auf talking. He said, okay, tell me, is this Ali, Uthman, Talha, and Zubair? Or some of them tell you this to say this? And Abdurrahman bin Auf said, yes, of course. He said, by Allah. And he said, oh, Abdurrahman, by Allah, I was kind to people until I feared that I'm too kind. So he became tough on them. And he said, I was tough on them, and we became scared that I'm too tough, so I become kind to them. SubhanAllah. So Umar was very careful about his behavior. And then he said, okay, why don't you give me something? What do you want me to do now? Because if you become too kind, that's problematic. If you become too tough, that's problematic. He said, give me the solution now. Now, upon that, Abdurrahman bin Auf, he got up and he started crying and he started dragging his izar. And he said that by his hand, he was saying, what a bad state these people will be after Umar bin Khattab is gone. SubhanAllah. Because he understood the behavior of Umar was because of the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He had the taqwa of Allah. He was very well aware about his accountability in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence, he was acting like that. And Abdurrahman bin Auf, he was right away, he started crying for this. Another story, very simple, quick one, that one of the Qurayshi men, he met with Umar. And he said, be kind to us, for you have filled our hearts with awe. In Urdu, by the way, we use the word haybat. It's the same thing, coming from the Arabic, but the ta marbuta in Urdu becomes ta maftuha. So we say haybat. Hayba or haybat, the same thing. But here, so he said, our hearts become full of awe. So Umar said, is there any wrongdoing in that? What I'm saying, is there anything wrong that I am doing? Because of that, you feel this way. So he said, no. Now, Umar al-Khattab, he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, may Allah increase me in this hayba, or the awe, in your hearts. So you will have more fear of me because I am doing what Allah wants. See, that's the part here. It's not the fear of a tyrant. It's not a fear of an oppressive ruler. It's the hayba or the fear, or it's actually it's a respect. That respect was making them feel this way. So going to a couple of more examples, and inshallah we'll change the subject. Then Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anh, we talked about his personality. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, he used to keep him all the time with him, right? Because of his knowledge of the deen, and especially of the Quran. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam made the dua for Abdullah bin Abbas. One of the stories mentioned, Abdullah bin Abbas says that for 1 year I want to ask Umar about a verse, but I could not ask him because of the awe I have of Umar. Because of the haiba I had of Umar, he could not ask the question to him. Now, besides all this, the way Umar carried himself, Umar was also very keen of meeting people. And his meeting was not like, that today, how many of us even can imagine to go and meet leaders of any country? None of us probably. Yeah, they will not even allow any of us to be near them. And if they're passing by, there will be thousands and thousands of cops or soldiers around them to make sure nobody meets them. And Umar, subhanallah, he was a ruler over such a big land, and still he wanted to meet and sit with the people to know them. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anh mentions that whenever Umar radiallahu anh used to pray, going to Masjid al-Nabawi or any other place he's praying, he would sit among the people. And he would like to hear what people have to say to him. So he was listening to any kind of advice they're giving, or any kind of a problem they're going through. He would try to solve them, or if there's advice, he would use them. So he said one time, I came to Umar's door, and Yarfa was there. So he said, is Amir al-Mu'mineen sick? Because he was inside. He said no. So he said, Abdullah bin Abbas says he was still there, and Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anh came. Now, when they both came, now he told them that go inside to Umar. So he said, get up, O son of Affan, this is Uthman bin Affan, and son of Abbas. So they entered to Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. And when they went there, they saw a pile of money in front of Umar. See, this is different, by the way, compared to the time of Umar, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh. Sahaba did not see wealth coming in to the country at the state at that time. It was a very meager kind of a situation, and they did not have enough. A lot of time, the Sahaba actually, even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, they would tie the stones of the rock around their stomach. So keep the stomach away from growling or making noise. It would hurt because of hunger. Now here, he sees a pile of money in front of Umar bin Khattab. So now Umar says, take this wealth and distribute it among the people. Why? Because Uthman bin Affan and Abdullah bin Abbas, they were very well aware of the situation of the people. So he knew these are the people who are trustworthy. They are aware of the situation of the people. They can distribute the wealth among the people in a just manner. So he said, why don't you go and distribute the wealth? So now it was said that Abdullah bin Abbas said, what if, and he said, by the way, Umar said, if there's money left, bring it back to me. So Abdullah bin Abbas said, what if this money is not enough? What should I do then? And he said he's already heard about this. And he said that to the Rasulullah, look at the story of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions eating dried meat. You're talking about now you need more money, while they used to have dried meat, meaning that it's the old meat that they're eating. And he said, what would have he done, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he had that kind of money? So Abdullah Abbas said, he would have eaten and fed us. Meaning, it's not just he will go to the people of Medina and distribute among them, he would also eat himself and fed us too. Now, Umar bin Khattab's response was that he started crying intensely. And he said, I wish that I could get out of this affair, being a Khalifa, without any gain or loss. Because he was very scared to spend any of this wealth on himself. He was not, unlike today, this is a norm now, that the wealth of the Ummah have been stolen by the people who forget about the Prime Minister or President. Anybody who has a little bit of power, he'll make sure that he'll fill his pockets. And subhanAllah, when you have a leader like that who's implementing the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how careful he was. He's just thinking of even if he comes out even, no gain, no loss, that's sufficient for him. That's how much, subhanAllah, this is a lesson for anybody who's listening and have that kind of position to think about. Abbas radiallahu anh, uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there's a story about him, that what happened was there was one of the camels of the booty, the spoils of war was there, it was injured. So Umar radiallahu anh, he slaughtered it because if it's injured, it's gonna die. So it's better to, before it dies, you can slaughter it and you can use the meat. So he slaughtered it and he gave the meat to the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the rest was given among the Muslims. So Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Oh Amir al-Mu'minin, why don't you do this for us every day, so we can eat and chat with you?" So he's thinking of, okay, we'll sit together, chat with you and all those things. Umar said, "I will never do it again." He said, "I will never do it again." Why? He said, "My two companions have passed on and they did certain things and followed a certain path." Talking about which two companions? Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Like examples we follow. And this is the example that he was trying his best to follow. And he was afraid that if he get onto this path of slaughtering camels on a daily basis and eating and sitting with the people like that, that will take away from the path that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Bakr had. Okay. Then another story was about freeing of a slave, the freed slave of Umar al-Khattab, who was Aslam. Umar appointed a free slave of his in charge of Hima. Hima is normally referred to a land where cattle will come and they will graze. Umar made sure, he told them, "Oh Hunayn," Hunayn was the free slave, Aslam is reporting this, "do not do any harm to the Muslims and fear the prayer of the one who has been wronged, for it is answered. Only let in those who have sheep that are few in number, okay, and weak," talking about let those people come. And he said specifically, make sure that keep out the Ibn Auf, Abdurrahman bin Auf. We know he was one of the richest among the Sahaba. He said, keep his sheep out of this Hima. And sheep of Affan, Ibn Affan, which is Uthman bin Affan. Both of them were two of the richest Sahaba. And as we have talked about previously, Uthman bin Affan, and in Tabuk, he gave like literally the wealth that he gave was in millions for the expedition of Tabuk. So that kind of a wealth Uthman bin Affan had. So he said, keep them away. Why? He said, because if their cattle or animals die, they have enough orchards and the palm trees and all those wells and all those things for them to continue on. But if the sheep of these poor, weak people die, they will come to me. They will come to Baitul Mal. And he said, it's much easier for me to let the sheep graze the land in the Hima than they come and take gold and silver from the Baitul Mal. Because it's much easier, yeah? And to be just, to make sure the weak is the one who gets the justice here. That's the idea at the end of the day. Another story that talks about Musa ibn Anas ibn Malik, that Sirin, the father of Muhammad bin Sirin, he said, asked Anas for a contract of emancipation. It's called, in Islam, there's a thing called, if there is a slave, he can become a makatib. Makatib means he writes a contract. If he has money, he can pay it off and he will be free. Now, he goes to Musa ibn Anas, and Musa ibn Anas is mentioning about Anas, sorry. So he went to Anas and he said, I want to write a contract. He said, no, I don't want to write a contract. He's trying to refuse. And they went to Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. So Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh, he reminded him about وَالَّذِينَ يَبْتَغُونَ الْكِتَابَ مِمَّا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ فَكَاتِبُوهُمْ إِنْ عَلِمْتُمْ فِيهِمْ خَيْرًا. And then goes on, وَآتُوهُمْ مِنَ الْمَالِ مَالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي أَتَاكُمْ. Subhanallah. So he reminded them about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and such of your slaves as seek a writing, or which is of the emancipation, give them such writing. If you find that there is good and honesty in them, and not only that, وَآتُوهُمْ مِنْ مَالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي أَتَاكُمْ. Also, if you have some wealth Allah given to you, give it to them. Now, when Umar interfered, then Anas had no other option but to give. Now, why are we discussing this? Because Umar had the authority. And Umar reminded them to how even he spoke in the favor of the slaves also, to make sure that slave gets what he is supposed to be getting, as he had enough to be free, and he made sure that he gets free. Couple of examples, inshallah, about disciplining some of the leaders of the society, and then we'll inshallah stop today. In the time of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu an, of course, there were people who were in power before they became Muslim, or before Mecca especially. But Fatah Makkah happened, meaning that Makkah was opened or conquered. Before that, there were a lot of Meccans who were elites, leaders, but they did become Muslim also later on. Now, just because they become Muslim does not mean that they will get the same privileges as they had in the Jahiliyyah. So now, once Umar came to Mecca, and the people of Mecca came rushing to him. They said, "Oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Abu Sufyan has built a house and has blocked the water. So now, because he has blocked the water is going to come in a way that it can destroy our houses." So Umar, radiallahu anh, he went and he was carrying his famous stick. He had his stick and he went to Abu Sufyan and found that Abu Sufyan had set up some stones. So he said, "Remove this," and he removed it. Then he said, "Remove this one also, and this one, and this one." He continually asked him to remove those stones. And then he looked at the Kaaba, Umar, and he said, "Praise to Allah who has made Umar give orders to Abu Sufyan in the center of Mecca, and he obeys him." So he's making sure that it is known. Look, there's a leader who used to be in the Mecca, but who's the one who gave this authority to Umar radiallahu anh? This is because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of his Islam, because that people gave the authority to him, and he became the ruler over people like even Abu Sufyan. Don't forget, Abu Sufyan is one of those people, used to be. Of course, he became Muslim, alhamdulillah, but there was times. He's the one who was one of the forces who was preparing army against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He led the army. Uhud was one of those battles in which he was leading, and Muslims actually were many of the Sahaba actually were martyred in Ghazwatul Uhud. So this is Ghazwat Uhud. This is important to remember. This is the kind of personality you're talking about. And Umar, when he's talking about Abu Sufyan, that's why he's speaking like this. That he's thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah gave authority to Umar to the point that he gives order to Abu Sufyan and he obeys him. Another story is about Uyayna ibn Hisan. He visited Umar, with whom was Malik ibn Abi Zafar, one of the poor Muslims. So Uyayna ibn Hisan was one of the elites. So Uyayna overstepped the mark by saying, "The weak have become strong." He's talking about, and the lowly have been raised in status. So Malik said, "Is this man boasting to us when his ancestors are in hellfire?" Subhanallah. So now Malik, he's saying like this. So Umar got angry at Uyayna because Uyayna was actually degrading the other Muslim brothers. Once you are a Muslim, you don't look at the things from the perspective of the one who has more wealth or one who has more power is better than you. Anything. No. In front of Allah Azza wa Jal, the one who has more honor is the one who has more taqwa. And that's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to judge. So now here, Umar ibn Khattab replied, "Be humble in Islam. By Allah, I will not approve of you until you make Malik intercede for you. I will not let you go. You better reconcile now. Go back to Malik," he said, talking to Uyayna, "and reconcile with him." And he had to do that. Now, when talking about these elites, Al-Jarud and Ubay bin Ka'b. Ubay bin Ka'b was one of the famous Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Al-Jarud came to Umar, and a man said, "This is the leader of Rabi'ah," trying to show that he's a big guy. Umar started hitting him with his stick. And I'm afraid that it will affect you in a spiritual manner. Because the people see, this is a celebrity kind of a feeling that that he had, Al-Jarud. And same thing, Ubay bin Ka'b. He came out of the masjid, people gathered around him, asking him questions. So a celebrity has come out of the masjid. Now compare this to today. We have many celebrity scholars, and people gather around them, and they think of themselves with big shots or something. And look how Umar bin Khattab is dealing. And Ubay bin Ka'b radiallahu anhu, one of the famous Sahaba. Then he said to him, "What are you doing?" When the people start gathering, he said, "What are you doing? Is a fitna for the leader and humiliation for the followers. What you're doing like this, like gathering people around you as feeling that you are a big shot or something. That's what Umar wants to make sure that this has been killed. Yes, there is nothing wrong to go to the people who have knowledge, ask the question, but not in a manner that you are making them something big, meaning, if a scholar says something, people just follow it blindly. Umar wants to make sure that people are not getting to that kind of state. Now, one thing, let's see how much time we got here. Okay, so when it comes to denunciation of the bad actions that happened in the time of Umar al-Khattab, Umar al-Khattaba's time, there was one slaughterhouse that was owned by Zubair ibn Awwam. And Umar used to go to the slaughterhouse of Zubair, and that was only one in Medina, as I said, and he would carry his stick with it. And he make sure that if he saw a man buying meat 2 days in a row, it will hit him. Why? He wants to make sure that your neighbor and your cousins are getting it too. You're not the only one should be getting it. So he wants to have some sort of a distribution in a proper manner. And then one time, Umar saw a beggar, and he had food stuff on his back, and he's still begging. So while he was begging, Umar went to him. He took food and gave it to zakat. Gave it to the zakat camels. Then he said to him, "Now ask for whatever you want," because the person who was begging, he already had enough on his back, and he's still begging. Now, why is this important incident to discuss today? Is a lot of time we see beggars on the street. Even now, even in Chicago, you find a lot of them, and back home, sometime in many Muslim countries, you find them. People will say, "Oh, you know what? These are professional beggars. Don't give it to them." We probably hear this a lot. These are professional beggars. Now, the question comes to the mind is, look, if somebody is asking for money, is begging, he could be a professional beggar, or he may be in need. Allah knows the best. Unless we know for sure a person is a professional beggar, he's begging for the heck of it, or for drugs or alcohol and stuff like that. That's a separate issue. Then you try to take care of this kind of personality. But at the end of the day, both cases, if a person is really in need, who is responsible for that? It's the state. If a person is a professional beggar, meaning he's trying to buy drugs, or they have a gang who sends people to beg on the streets, who's supposed to take care of those people also, or remove them off the street? It's still the state. So Umar radiallahu an made sure if something like this is happening, or a person who has needs are fulfilled and still begging, he tried to stop them. Of course, other places we find the stories where he actually took the beggar away. He made sure that they have got enough. In this story, maybe at that time there was not enough to give it to him. But in general, you find Umar was taking care of all the needs of the people, especially the basic necessities. He tried his best to be taken care of. One person in the time of Umar, Umar saw a man who looked like if he was dying because of they call it like a asceticism or a zuhud, you want to call it, or insak. Yeah. The worshipper, he worshipped so much, he fasted so much that he's about to die. Umar went and he hit him with his stick. Now he goes, "Do you make our religion dead? What you're doing is, this is not Islam, that you try to starve yourself to death, or to show that I am now a very spiritually high person. I am a zahid, by showing that I am weak. No, this is not Islam." And Umar made sure, he said, "Are you trying to kill our deen by acting like this?" Another report talks about of Ashifa. Ashifa was one of Ashifa bint Abdullah was one of the judges in time of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu. So she saw some people who walked slow and spoke slowly. I don't know if you guys know. Nowadays, even sometimes, some of the shuyukh, if we go shake hand to them, they will shake their hands like this. It's almost as if there is no power in the hands. And people think of it as if oh, this is out of so much worship they do, so they have become weak. This is not Islam. So look what Shifa said. She said that, she asked them first, who are these people? They say, oh, these are insak. These are the people who worship Allah. These from the because of zuhd, they act like this. So she said, by Allah, when Umar bin Khattab spoke, he could be heard. When he walked fast, and when he hit, caused the pain. So that's what Umar bin Khattab was. And by Allah, he was a true. The word used is a nasik, so not insan. So she said, Wallahi an-nasiku haqqan, wa huwa wallahi an-nasiku haqqan. So he was a real nasik. Nasik is the one who worships. Yeah. So that shows that how Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh made sure that these kind of simple things you may think of as simple, but see, if it prevails in a society, it impacts the next generations also. And we can see that down the road today as well. Many of us see some of these kind of sicknesses have become norms in the society, and thought of it as if a person who acts weak or tries to walk in a weak manner, oh, because he's a very humble person. There's no humbleness in acting like this. This is not Islam. You don't find in Islam these kind of actions. This is made up things which are coming from many different cultures, and it's not from Islam. Now, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh was one of the examples. And you can find a similar thing in the lives of Abu Bakr, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and other Sahaba. They were not the ones who were acting like that. Okay, so inshallah, the main purpose of discussing all these things was to make sure that we see that how Islam was practiced and how people look at Islam when Islam was implemented as a way of life, rather than looking at Islam as just my spiritual needs to be taken care of by Islam. When it comes to my real life affairs, then Islam has nothing to do with that. This is not the way Islam is. Islam provides us a comprehensive way of life. And Umar bin Khattab's life, when we read about that, the life of Abu Bakr, the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all the Sahaba, when we read what? We read how Islam was practiced as a way of life. So we learn from that and see that this is practical. This is not something that is just supposed to be in the books. It was practical, it was implemented over the Muslims for past 13 centuries, and inshallah it will be implemented again. And the mankind, not only Muslims, the whole mankind will see the mercy of real Islam.
Sure.
Okay, we'll stop here, inshallah. If there's any questions or comments about the subject,